Brands are entering the battlefield and going to war. A 20-year-old Filipino girl's dream and tennis racket turned into the most lucrative business opportunity in the world. Although the WTA has experienced emerging stars in the past, nothing like what is happening around Alexandra Eala at the moment has ever been witnessed. The biggest names in international sports are vying for a piece of it. She was once a wild card that no one outside of the Philippines was discussing. The following day, she defeated the second-ranked player in the world, broke into the top 100, and started a brand frenzy that no one in the tennis community anticipated. So, how did a 20-year-old from Manila completely upend the women's tennis sponsorship scene? And why are the brands circling her as they've never done so before? We're just getting started, so stick with us. A young girl in Manila signed her first endorsement contract at the age of 8. Long before brand battles, viral moments, and the WTA rankings began to move so quickly that analysts had to double-check their screens. Give that some thought. 8 years old, one of the biggest telecom firms in the Philippines, Globe Telecom, believed it was worthwhile to wager on a young girl who had never participated in a professional match. That story is not typical. The sports world doesn't normally operate that way. Endorsement agreements follow the awards, the rankings, and the evidence. However, there was something about Alexandra Eala that caused Global to gaze ahead and see something that no one had yet seen in the present. Her upbringing was influenced by athletics. Riza, her mother, was a skilled competitive swimmer. Michael, her brother, then attended Pennsylvania State University to play tennis. In the AA home, sports were not a pastime. It was a discipline, a language, and a means of comprehending the world. And Alex took in every word. She was already bearing the burden of a country's expectations on a body that tennis experts would later characterize as appearing fragile when she left the Philippines to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. However, everyone who observed her practice could see that the term frail had never been more true. She was incredibly dedicated to her career. Like other youngsters preparing for college entrance examinations, she studied the game. She learned the tactical acumen of one of the greatest teams ever created while training with some of Europe's top young players. When the French tennis equipment firm Babolat saw her in her junior year, they instantly offered to sponsor a racket. She was not given the pure arrow she now uses on the WTA Tour. During years of arduous development that the majority of supporters never saw, it was earned rally by rally. Nike called in 2019. A 14-year-old Filipino girl caught the attention of one of the biggest sports brands on the planet, and they thought she was worthy of their mark. Not because of what she had done, but rather because of what they could already predict she would become. When the Bank of the Philippine Islands joined the team in 2022, Eala was positioned as a spokesperson for discipline and financial literacy, values that were just a logical progression of her personality. Celebrity marketing was not what this was. Authentic alignment was recognized by this brand. She became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam Junior Singles Championship when she won the U.S. Open Junior Singles Championship in 2022. The Philippines exploded. It received frenzied coverage from the national media that is often reserved for Olympic gold medals. Beneath the festivities, a business ecology was emerging around a name that the world's tennis community was still getting used to pronouncing. This served as the basis. Real, quiet, and methodical. However, foundations are only important because of what is constructed on top of them. And the entire structure of women's tennis would be upended by what was about to be constructed on top of Alexandra Eala's foundation. Hold on, because everything was completely altered by what transpired in Miami. And nobody was ready for it. Not the fans, not the WTA, nor the businesses. Miami Open, March 2025. In front of viewers and broadcast partners from all around the world, One of the most prestigious WTA 1000 events on the calendar took place in the sweltering Florida heat. Alex Eala came in at number 140. She entered on a wild card, which is an invitation given to players who did not meet the automatic admission threshold. The tennis world frequently saw this as an opportunity for a promising local draw rather than a real threat to the top levels of the competition. When Alex Eala's name appeared in the draw, no one on the circuit was trembling. Their first error was that Jelena Ostapenko, a Grand Slam winner with an aggressive flat-hitting style that intimidates opponents before the first throw, was the opponent she faced in her first match. She was beaten by Eala. The tennis community was taken aback. While it is not unheard of, a wild card player defeating a Grand Slam champion is also not common. People began to take notice. Then came Madison Keys, the 2025 Australian Open champion, and one of the WTA's strongest forehand hitters and servers. Keys had a Grand Slam title still warm in her hands when she arrived in Miami. Eala took her back-to-back apart. In the same tournament, a wild card player had now defeated two Grand Slam winners. No one in the tennis community was paying attention anymore. Its eyes were wide open as it sat up straight, leaned forward, and observed. Then came Eala, the second-ranked player in the world, a five-time Grand Slam champion, and one of the most mentally dominant female athletes in a generation. Even the world's top players questioned whether they could compete with Swiatek on the greatest stages after she spent years at the pinnacle of the sport, winning trophies with a terrifying consistency. She was also beaten by Eala. Something changed as soon as the game was over. Not only in the competition, but also in the Philippines, where the country's response ranged from a carnival to a communal religious experience. As brand executives and commercial strategists watched from their offices with laptops open and spreadsheets prepared, something changed in their cold, calculating brains. Before the competition started, her career prize money was just less than $500,000. In just 1 week, it almost doubled. Her career total surpassed $830,000 as she earned an extra $332,000 from her semi-final run alone. She became the first Filipino player, male or female, to enter the WTA Top 100 as she concluded the tournament ranked 75th in the world. She was 20 years old. As a wild card, she had entered. Every sports magazine on the planet wanted to tell the tale of her departure. It was no longer a question of whether or not Alex Eala was being noticed by brands. How quickly they could reach her before someone else did was the question. Do you believe that this story peaked at the Miami Open? Reconsider, because the actual conflict started with what transpired following that competition. The commercial reaction to a professional tennis player's breakthrough is largely predictable. Calls are made by agents. Brands show interest. Meetings take place. Months are spent discussing deals. Documents are examined. Press releases with carefully chosen words reflecting mutual delight and shared ideals are used to make announcements. After Miami, Alex Eala's surroundings did not follow that trend. Nobody in the tennis industry had seen anything like it in years. It was faster, louder, and more chaotic. The Philippine media landscape, which had always followed Eala's career with a strong sense of patriotism, reached almost complete saturation. Front-page coverage resulted from each tournament appearance. Within minutes of the final point, every match's outcome was trending on Filipino social media. Her schedule was used as the basis for programming on national television networks. When sponsorship experts began estimating her commercial worth, they discovered outcomes that defied even the most optimistic forecasts. Then the claims went viral. A $45 million endorsement agreement was allegedly offered to Alex Eala by Wilson Sporting Goods, one of the biggest brands in the tennis equipment industry, according to fake posts that started making the rounds on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. The posts went viral very quickly. Before fact-checkers could step in, one Facebook post from the Tennis Plus page received over 103,000 likes, 6,700 comments, and over 3,000 shares. Two of the most reputable fact-checking sites in the Philippines, Verifiles and Rappler, both released thorough debunking reports demonstrating that there was no such arrangement and that the statements claimed to Aya in the posts were wholly made up. Beneath the false information, however, comes this unsettling reality. The reason the phony posts went viral was not because people were gullible, but rather because they seemed plausible. $45 million does not seem like a pipe dream to a 20-year-old who has defeated 3 major champions in a single week. In the realm of professional sports marketing, it sounds like Tuesday morning. In the meantime, genuine and modest commercial developments were beginning to take place. Aya's announcement as a brand ambassador for the Filipino juice company locally in July 2025 added yet another local collaboration to a portfolio that was expanding in scope and prominence. For Aya's Wimbledon debut, Nike, a longtime partner, went above and beyond by giving her a personalized hair tie-shaped like a sampita bloom, the national flower of the Philippines. Filipino audiences responded emotionally to that one move, which was both symbolic and specific, and it received a great deal of media attention. It wasn't a coincidence. It was the creation of a company that knew exactly what Alex Eala meant to a country. Commercial analysts started providing in-depth evaluations of her market value for publications that covered the nexus of business and sport. According to one assessment, there are more than 650 million people in the ASEAN region. Digital penetration has grown quickly throughout Southeast Asia, and tennis has never had a strong elite representation from the region to base a business plan around. In these analyses, Alex Eala was more than just a tennis player. She was characterized as a potential commercial bridge, the person who may ultimately open up one of the most populous and technologically advanced regional marketplaces in the world for an entire sport. As all of this was happening, the WTA was negotiating a situation for which they had no set strategy. A player who, despite her ranking, packed stadiums. A player whose attendance at games defies the typical correlation between crowd size and world ranking. A player who is attracting sponsorship interest and media attention at a level not previously attained by senior players with longer careers and higher rankings. This is where things become complex, though, because not everyone was having a good time, and the discussion surrounding Alex Eala was going to become much more heated. Let's discuss the conflict that everyone was engaged in, but no one formally proclaimed. The false sponsorship rumors involving Alex Eala had grown into a separate phenomena by September 2025. The $45 million claim made by Wilson was not a singular occurrence. It fit into a pattern. Stories involving made-up brand deals, fake donation announcements, and remarks purportedly from Eala went viral on social media. Before being refuted by journalists performing the actual verification, each one generates thousands of interactions. The Rappler fact check was clear. There were no news stories, Wilson Sporting Goods official declarations, Aya's management team's confirmation, or any form of reliable sourcing. The statements that were claimed to her in the widely shared posts, such as those about giving money to the underprivileged, spending endorsement funds for the Philippines, and prioritizing charity over business, were all made up. The image used to bolster one of the tweets was stolen from the LinkedIn profile of Joe Duddy, the former CEO and president of Wilson, who had left the company 3 days before to the post. Consider the implications of that. Someone had done enough investigation to locate a leaving executive's LinkedIn profile at Wilson Sporting Goods, and the fabrication was timed to align with a genuine organizational change at the company. This was not irresponsible false information. This was calculated, and it was successful. Not in the sense that people thought the arrangement was genuine forever. Although the fact-checkers acted swiftly, It was effective in that it disclosed something accurate about the time Alex Eala spent there. Because the basic idea was plausible, the story gained traction. International businesses are pursuing a young Filipino tennis player who uses her platform for something greater than herself and makes decisions that reflect pride in her country. Even though the dollar amounts were fictitious, the story was easy to accept since, in many respects, it was already true in spirit. The actual endorsement photo was already striking. Nike since 2019, Babolat during her early years, Globe Telecom since she was 8 years old, BPI since 2022. Since July 2025, Unilever has operated locally. November 2022 cover of Vogue Philippines. A January 2025 Tatler Philippines cover. In April 2025, the Philippine Embassy in Madrid presented the Primi Tangla Trophy, gold at the Thailand CE Games in 2025, a global ranking of 50 at year's conclusion. The actual tale was remarkable. However, because the true tale had caused a discrepancy between what people thought Alex Eala deserved and what had been formally declared, the phony reports continued to surface. That gap served as a breeding ground for false information. The anxiety it caused for Eala herself was something that nobody in that conversation was really talking about. Viral fabrications that put words in her lips that she never spoke and figures in her contracts that didn't exist continuously overwhelmed her efforts to establish a respectable career, make actual progress, and form genuine connections. It was stated clearly in the Asian Journal article about the phenomena. On social media, fake sponsorship stories were flourishing and frequently overshadowing her actual accomplishments. Few sportsmen ever had to deal with that particular type of noise. The kind when your real tale isn't compelling enough to be posted online. Thus, a larger one is produced via the internet. It speaks much about how high expectations had become around her. What does this mean for the WTA then? And how are the companies that are genuinely featured in the narrative utilizing the chance?